"Hang on, little one, please hang on," Taehyung whispered frantically. He didn't know who could do such a thing, but there was no time to think. He ran as fast as he could down the slippery streets. He didn't know who could do such a thing, but there was no time to think. He ran as fast as he could down the slippery streets, sprinting all the way to his small apartment complex. Once inside his warm living room, Taehyung placed the baby on his sofa and quickly wrapped him in 3 thick, clean blankets. He turned the heater up to its maximum setting. Taehyung carefully checked the baby's fingers and toes. Thankfully, the thick hospital blanket had saved the child from severe frostbite, but he was still dangerously cold and hungry. Taehyung ran to his kitchen, warmed up a bottle of milk he had in his fridge, and checked the temperature on his wrist. Returning to the sofa, he gently lifted the baby and held the bottle to his tiny lips. The baby eagerly latched onto the bottle, drinking hungrily. Taehyung let out a long, shaky breath, wiping a tear from his cheek. He looked closely at the newborn's face. The baby had big, round, dark eyes, chubby cheeks, and a tiny button nose. He was undeniably beautiful. "Who could ever leave you like that?" Taehyung murmured, anger flaring in his heart at the thought of whoever had tossed this precious life away like garbage. Who could be so cruel? He gently unswaddled the baby to check for any injuries or identification. There were no medical bracelets, no notes, no tags on the clothes, nothing except a plain blue blanket. As the milk warmed his tummy, the baby stopped crying. He let out a soft, contented burp, blinked his large dark eyes up at Taehyung, and wrapped his tiny hand around Taehyung's pinky finger. Taehyung's heart melted completely. "You're a strong little guy, aren't you?" Taehyung smiled softly, a deep warmth filling his chest. "You survived the cold night. You look like a little Cookie, brave and sweet. I'll call you Cookie for now." Taehyung decided he would take the baby to the police station first thing in the morning once the blizzard cleared. But for tonight, he cradled little Cookie against his chest, rocking him gently until both of them fell asleep in the warm room. The private jet touched down at Gimpo Airport at 3 in the morning. The blizzard had reduced visibility to near zero, but Jungkook forced his driver to navigate the ice-slicked streets at dangerous speeds. When he stepped into the private wing of Seoul National University Hospital, his coat was dusted with snow, and his face was set in hard, anxious lines. He pushed open the door to room 402. The room was dark and silent. The bed was unmade, sheets tossed aside. The bassinet beside the window sat empty, its white blanket thrown on the floor. "Jennie?" Jungkook called out, his voice echoing in the sterile quiet. No response. A sudden, sharp tension gripped his chest. He marched out to the nurses' station, his heavy footsteps bringing 3 nurses to immediate attention. "Where is the party in room 402? Jungkook demanded, his voice dangerously low. "Where is my son?" The head nurse blinked in confusion, checking her tablet. "Mr. Jeon, Miss Jennie requested a glass of warm water 3 hours ago. She wanted privacy with the baby." 3 hours ago? Jungkook's eyes flared with anger. "You left a postpartum mother and a newborn unattended for 3 hours?" "Sir," she said. Jungkook didn't wait. He whipped out his phone and dialed his chief of security, Kim Namjoon, along with his personal secretary, Kim Jin. "Get to Snoo Hospital now." Jungkook commanded the moment Namjoon answered. "My son is missing. Jennie is gone. Lock down every exit, review every camera, and get every man we have on the streets." 10 minutes later, Namjoon and Jin arrived. Namjoon, tall and broad-shouldered, wore a black tactical coat, while Jin hurried behind him with a high-powered laptop tucked under his arm. "What happened, Jungkook?" Jin asked, his usual light-hearted demeanor replaced by pure professionalism. "Jennie, she is nowhere. She took him." Jungkook spat, his knuckles white as he slammed his fist against the wall. "I gave her money, security, everything she asked for. If she hurts my boy, I will destroy her." "We'll find them," Namjoon said calmly, placing a firm hand on Jungkook's shoulder. "Jin, hack into the hospital security network. Trace every feed from 11 p.m. onward." Jin set his laptop on the nurse's counter, his fingers moving across the keyboard in a blur of motion. Inside the hospital security monitoring room, the atmosphere was suffocating. Jungkook stood behind Jin, his dark eyes fixed on the glowing monitors. Got it, Jin announced, slowing down a black and white video feed. 11:42 p.m. Rear emergency stairwell. On the screen, a woman wrapped in a dark, oversized coat stumbled down the concrete stairs. She cradled a small bundle tightly under her coat. Look at her face, Namjoon pointed to the frame. It's Jennie. She avoided the main lobby and exited through the service door into the alley behind the east wing. Follow her, Jungkook ordered, his voice trembling with suppressed rage. Every camera on that street. Jin pulled up municipal traffic feeds and private commercial surveillance from nearby storefronts. They watched Jennie trudge through the deep snow, heading down a dark commercial street 4 blocks away from the hospital. At 11:58 p.m., she turned into a narrow, unlit alleyway. Zoom in on that angle, Namjoon said, leaning closer. That's the back of a commercial bakery. The footage was grainy, but the dark narrative was horrifyingly clear. Jennie stopped in front of a heavy industrial trash container. She reached under her coat, pulled out the infant, and placed him inside the metal bin. Jungkook's breath hitched in his throat. The room seemed to lose all oxygen. No, Jungkook gasped, slamming both palms onto the control desk. No, no, no. On the screen, Jennie slammed the bin lid down, pulled a phone from her pocket, snapped the card, and tossed it into a nearby storm drain before walking away into the darkness. That monster, Jin whispered, his face pale with horror. She left a newborn in the trash in sub-zero weather. Jungkook's eyes turned bloodshot. A terrifying, icy fury washed over him. Where is the baby now? Jin, fast forward. Tell me someone found him. Tell me. Jin's fingers flew across the keyboard, skipping the video forward frame by frame. For 20 agonizing minutes, the screen showed only snowfall and the silent trash bin. Jungkook felt his knees buckle. 20 minutes in freezing temperatures was a death sentence for an infant. Then, at 12:22 a.m., a figure appeared on the screen. He stops, Jin observed, leaning in. He hears something. On the screen, the young man suddenly rushed toward the trash bins. He threw open the lid, reached inside, and pulled out the blue blanket. The camera captured a brief, clear angle of his face as he pulled the blanket down to check on the freezing child, his eyes wide with horror and overwhelming compassion. The man quickly unbuttoned his coat, tucked the baby securely against his chest, and ran off down the street toward a residential block. Zoom in on his face, Jungkook commanded, his voice trembling with a mixture of agony and desperate hope. Zoom in. Namjoon enhanced the image, running a high-resolution facial recognition scan through the city's public registry. Within 6 seconds, a file popped up on the right side of the screen. Name: Kim Taehyung. Age: 26. Occupation: Lead teacher, Little Stars Kindergarten. Address: 402 Mapogu, Seoul. Jungkook stared at the image of the young man on the screen. He had soft eyes, a bright smile in his ID photo, and a gentle face. We have his name, address, and place of work, Jin said, turning to Jungkook. Should I call the police? Morning light broke through the rain clouds, casting a soft glow into Taehyung's apartment. Taehyung was sitting on the edge of his bed, holding a warm washcloth, gently wiping baby Cookie's soft cheeks. You're a strong little fighter, aren't you, Cookie? Taehyung whispered, gently tickling the baby's chin. The baby was cooing happily, kicking his tiny legs in the air. Cookie let out a soft, adorable squeak, his tiny mouth stretching into a toothless yawn, before his dark eyes fluttered open once more. He looked up at Taehyung, completely calm, as if he knew he was in the hands of someone who would never let anything harm him. Taehyung had spent the whole night wide awake, making sure the baby didn't develop a fever. Taehyung smiled, though a heavy sadness lingered in his mind. He knew he couldn't keep the baby forever. As much as his heart had already attached itself to this little miracle, he had to report this to the police. Someone out there might be looking for him, or worse, whoever had left him needed to be brought to justice. He was planning to head to the police station the moment the neighborhood precinct opened at 9 a.m. Suddenly, a heavy, commanding knock echoed at his front door. Taehyung blinked, startled. It was barely 5 in the morning. Who could be knocking at this hour? He carefully set Cookie down in a nest of soft pillows on his bed and walked over to the door. Who is it? The door didn't just open. Two large men in dark suits stepped aside as a tall, imposing man in a tailored black suit stepped into the small apartment. Jungkook's eyes didn't waste a second on the apartment's modest furniture. His gaze swept the room until he heard a soft rhythmic coo coming from the bedroom. Without asking for permission, Jungkook strode past a stunned Taehyung into the bedroom. Hey, you can't just walk in here! Taehyung cried out, rushing after him. Jungkook stopped dead in his tracks beside the bed. There he was, a tiny baby, wrapped in one of Taehyung's soft yellow sweaters, looking up with wide dark eyes. Jungkook's breath caught in his throat. Tears sprang to his eyes instantly. He dropped to his knees beside the bed, his large, trembling hand reaching out to touch the baby's tiny fingers. The baby immediately wrapped his hand around Jungkook's finger, the exact same gesture he had given Taehyung the night before. The warmth of the baby's skin hit Jungkook's senses, and the powerful, unyielding CEO collapsed into tears, resting his forehead against the edge of the basket as quiet, agonizing sobs broke from his chest. You're okay, Jungkook choked out, his voice thick with tears. My baby, you're safe. It's him, Jungkook whispered, his voice thick with emotion. It's my son. Taehyung stood in the doorway, confused and defensive. Your son? Who are you? How did you find me? After several long minutes, Jungkook wiped his face and looked up at Taehyung. He stood up slowly, facing the young kindergarten teacher. His mother, she abandoned him. My security chief, Namjoon, has the CCTV footage from the alley. We tracked you from the hospital, Jungkook said, his voice raw with emotion as he explained the horrifying reality in a few brief sentences. I was delayed by the storm. I didn't know until it was almost too late. If you hadn't walked down that alley, if you hadn't heard him. Jungkook stopped, unable to even speak the dark truth of what would have happened. He stepped closer to Taehyung and bowed deeply, a gesture of absolute humility from one of the most powerful men in the country. You saved my son's life, Jungkook said, looking up with fierce gratitude. You saved his life. I can never repay you for what you've done. He was alone in the cold, Taehyung replied softly. Anyone would have done the same. No, Jin chimed in gently, looking around the small apartment at the scattered infant supplies, the carefully warmed milk bottles, and the cozy blanket setup. Not anyone. You brought him home, cared for him, and loved him like your own. We need to return to the estate, Namjoon said quietly, checking his watch. Jungkook's mother is waiting, and we need to ensure the baby receives a full medical evaluation by our private doctors. Jungkook looked down at his son, then turned back to Taehyung. He noticed the gentle teacher looking at the baby with a quiet, lingering sadness in his eyes, a deep maternal sorrow at having to say goodbye. Come with us, Jungkook said suddenly. Taehyung looked up, surprised. What? Please, come to the estate with us, Mr. Kim, Jungkook requested, his tone firm yet polite. My family owes you everything. Allow us to properly host you and ensure you are compensated for your kindness. Taehyung hesitated for a second, but looking at baby Cookie sleeping peacefully in Jungkook's suit jacket, he found he couldn't bring himself to turn away just yet. Okay, Taehyung agreed softly. I'll come.